Welcome to Throw Off the Lines, the podcast where we navigate life's changes, explore new horizons, and embrace the journey. I'm your host, Stephanie York, an executive coach with a passion for charting new courses on the water and in life. Ready for some total change? Let's dive in. Okay, today's episode is a bit of an episode inside of an episode. It's all about plugging in and how podcasts can change your life. And I just really wanted to talk about my research into podcasts and why I started one and all that is, you know, 100 years ago, well, probably, 100 years ago, we started communicating with each other through digital means. And I'm not getting the exact times and dates and everything and when the light bulb and the radio started, but back in the 30s and the 40s, the 50s, radio stations and radio announcers were the only way we were getting information prior to TV. And people read a lot. People wrote each other letters. There was a lot of communication that way. But now we are way so far past that. And our TV and all of our paid sources are inundated with commercials, and podcasts have commercials as well. They need to support themselves. It's no entertainment or information is free these days, but when we're looking for authenticity and we're looking for voices that we want to hear, podcasts are going to be probably the future of authenticity, because yes, there's going to be AI podcasts. Yes, there are AI podcasts and there's AI videos and things like that. But when you're really looking for a person or a voice or education and things like that, podcasts are just such an authentic way to touch base with information we don't know. They're kind of the encyclopedias, random encyclopedias, and often not fact-checked, but they are a window into other places. So I'm going to cover kind of the ways that podcasts can affect your life. And if you aren't listening to podcasts, I strongly recommend that you do. There's one on just about every topic out there. And I'm going to end up this podcast episode with the different ways that you can go and find podcasts that are built for you. If you're a fan of a team or a fan of a topic, there's a podcast out there. If there is no podcast out there for what you're interested in, maybe start a podcast. It's not as hard as you think. So one of the reasons that I started a podcast was to find purpose in my life, but it was also to share the things I learned to do in order to overcome really, really difficult things, and the things that I did to change my life and to live a more purposeful life. And one of those was to kind of undo the programming that my brain had been set up with, all the things that happened to me in the past, things my parents said to me, things people said to me, things that were absorbed deep in my subconscious that weren't serving me. And so the ways that I was able to reprogram my brain so frequently were books. And then as I got busier and I'm trying to work and I'm driving places like so many of us are, it was listening to radio stations. But then so much of radio stations is fluff and their programming and commercials. And so I started to turn to podcasts probably well over 8 years ago, maybe even 10. And then podcasts became a way for me to step outside of myself and not feel so alone. So I'm going to cover some of the reasons that podcasts can contribute to a happier mindset. So a lot of what I talk about is self-speak and putting in positive information and wrapping yourself in positivity, especially if your life is not really super great right now. This is the only way I really was able to combat a deep depression and despair. And when my life was in some of the worst turmoil ever, I was able to come out of it because of books I read and researching and finding new companion information. And you can too. So podcasts can boost happiness by offering companionship, entertainment, access to diverse perspectives and information, potentially leading to, your increased awareness of situations, stress reduction, sense of connection. And I want you to really think about when we are trying to reprogram our brain, it is the information we put in. And while I'm always preaching mindfulness, I have an attention issue. My daughter says I have ADHD, and I'm not diagnosed with that, but I think she may have a point. And I can't always sit and listen to read a book. I can't always absorb written information because my attention span is not the best, and it's getting worse, and I'm working hard on it. So a podcast is often a place that I can just put myself so I can be somewhat mindful and in the moment by absorbing good information. And I'm still doing my meditation and I'm doing my physical exercise. But let's talk about some of the ways podcasts can positively impact us. So they can combat loneliness and promote connection. And it sounds crazy because you're listening to somebody else speak. You're not interacting with them. But I just posted a podcast on women and loneliness. And podcasts can provide a sense of companionship. And they certainly did for me throughout the pandemic. And they reduced my feelings of isolation. And I really felt like, okay, I'm isolated, I'm cut off, I feel lonely, I was so down. And by listening to these podcasts, I felt like I was connected to the world. I didn't feel left behind. I didn't feel isolated. I felt involved and engaged. Especially for anybody who, if you're struggling with social interaction, there's a lot of people who, say that they are neurodivergent and they're stressed out about going out. And I have episodes on connection as well. Practice interacting with a podcast, maybe even talk back to it, but engage in interacting, and then you're going to be able to possibly find the ability to go out and interact more often. They're also entertainment and stress relief. I mean, come on, who's kidding? There's a bunch of funny podcasts out there. And whenever you're listening to something that kind of takes you out of your woes and it engages you outside of whatever's going on in your life, it can offer, a lot of engaging content that can entertain you and reduce your stress and help you relax and unwind. And then we can also learn and improve, find self-improvement. Podcasts can be a great source of knowledge and inspiration, and they can help the listeners learn new things. I learn something from a podcast all the time. And I know I also listen to books on tape and audiobooks, as you will. They're no longer on tape, they're audiobooks. And these audiobooks I learn a lot from. And it is the author talking to me and at me. And they're very, very information rich. I find podcasts are sometimes a lot more just entertaining. And hopefully that you can learn to improve yourself through those. And then one of the things when I have an episode on really being a more diverse thinker and trying to learn how to open your brain up, and listening to podcasts of diverse perspectives is probably one of the best ways for you to work on critical thinking skills. Critical thinking skills will not only help you be more engaged in today's current topics, but they help your brain age in a more healthy way. And we're all aging every day. So this moment is the youngest you're ever going to be. So by listening to, exposing yourself to podcasts of a variety of viewpoints and experiences, you can foster empathy and understanding, which can then lead to a more positive outlook on life. When you don't feel isolated by your beliefs, and when you can see the perspectives of other people, it's easier to go out into the world and engage. It's not as scary. You don't feel like you're being personally attacked. You can see that people are just thinking other things. They're not forcing opinions on you. So get out there and diversify your perspective. Listen to different podcasts. You don't have to listen to all of them. Listen to a minute or two of them. And then another reason podcasts are amazing, and I talk a lot about being mindful. We all need to be very, very present because time is rushing past us as we jump into habits and we get our coffee, we turn on our TV, and we let the world just throw information at us. We're not created to absorb all this negativity that's being jammed down our throats by TV and online and the media. So mindfulness and self-reflection are on a lot of podcasts, particularly those focused on mindfulness or self-improvement and self-reflection. And it can encourage you to reflect on your own thoughts and feelings and promote self-awareness and emotional regulation. It's one of the things that we're really missing when you listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, or if I'm watching the news, and I don't listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. I know I brought him up a couple times, but he if we're listening to something that is constantly negative or has a very solid viewpoint in one direction, and Joe Rogan, I do enjoy his podcast when he interviews a lot of different people. And I do think that he tries really hard to get different perspectives, and he's selling a product. I get that. But when we are able to see perspectives and calm ourselves down, we get that emotional regulation that allows us to see more clearly how we react to the world. And when you're building empathy, which is another reason to listen to podcasts, it can help you connect with others and understand their struggles and foster empathy and compassion. And then it can help you find meaning and purpose. I did this podcast to find meaning and purpose. And as I continue to do episodes and read more books and listen to more things and pursue my purpose, I'm finding that there's so many podcasts out there that are related to happiness and well-being and purpose, and inspiring listeners to live more meaningful lives. And it inspires me to continue to do this podcast and to live a more meaningful life myself. And every day I'm reminded by the good podcasts I follow that I can step out into a healthier life. I can step out into healthier thinking and an emotional regulation, and I can be happier and more purposeful and really feel meaning. And then there's a sense of community. If you can find a group of listeners on one podcast, it can foster a sense of belonging, and you share similar interests or values, and you create a supportive network. And it's really, really important for us to find community digitally if we're not finding it physically and we're not getting our emotional needs met. This can be a surrogate for us to some extent until we get the strength to go out and interact and experiment socially in one-on-one situations or group situations. And then there's also a whole series of podcasts about new ideas and new topics. And as you start to explore and follow some of the search and browse features we're going to talk about, you might find, okay, I just went out and I found a Star Wars podcast. And because of that podcast, because I love Star Wars, I'm going to then go down this tunnel and look at some of the comments. And then somebody suggested this other Star Wars podcast, and I'm going to go listen to that. And boy, I found out some new stuff. Oh, and there's a conference coming up. Oh, or there's a subgroup of people, or in my community there's a meetup, and I'm going to go and take this podcast idea to that group, or I'm going to start an online group about people sharing information about this podcast topic. And you'll find new ideas and new interests, and you'll level up on the ideas and interests that you already have in your life. And you don't even know whole communities that exist out there, no matter how obscure and unique your podcast interests are. There's something out there. There is, absolutely. And also, listening to podcasts can offer a very profound escape from your daily routines and responsibilities. So if you've just been going, and I'm really trying to get myself to bed asleep by 10:30 every day and get up earlier and get my day launched. And I find that at the end of the day, I'm on my phone and I'm scrolling through stuff, and I never used to do that. Or I'm on YouTube watching videos, and I never used to do that. And now, instead, I'll turn on a podcast or I have digital books, and I will listen to somebody talking to me, and I'll feel engaged, and it'll help me slow down. And I'm not using my eyes. I'm not using blue light. I'm listening my ears. I'm using my ears to listen, and I'm not engaging my eyes. So I'm slowing myself down, and it's helping me escape the day, escape responsibilities, helping me relax, recharge my brain, put good information in there before I go into sleep. And then lastly, talking about, podcasts can provide inspiration and motivation and help you overcome challenges and achieve your goals. And that is certainly what I want all of my podcasts to do. So we know that these are all the ways that podcasts can help you, but I want to talk also about some simple steps on how to find podcasts that fit your particular needs and interests. And there's one really great way to do it. Go out on Use the search and browse features on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, Amazon, all of them, and browse by categories. So when I'm really looking for something that's just going to make me laugh, because boy, I've had a heavy day. I do a lot of research on things, and sometimes I just need to laugh. So I will go on looking for a podcast on comedy, and I'll find some really great comedy recordings, and it's fun. It's fun to laugh. If you are looking for tips and ideas on how to get healthier, there's health, there's podcasts about news, there's tons of podcasts about business and investing and self-help, and so many on relationships. When I was first dating, I was looking up podcasts on narcissism because I bumped into a narcissist right out of the gate, and spirituality and mindfulness and yoga and retreating at home and all these things. So search those categories and you'll find a variety of podcasts, and who knows, you might find one that has 500 episodes and you just love it and it makes you feel so good, and you don't know what's out there if you don't try. And then you can use the search bar to enter topics like mindfulness for beginners or funny parenting stories. There's as many variety of podcasts, and there's more joining it every single day. Just get out there and look for them. So now you might have done some searches, but try podcast discovery apps and websites. There's some that are set up just to help for this purpose. So one is called Listen Notes. It's a powerful search engine for podcasts. There's also Good Pods, which has social features to help you see what friends and influencers are listening to. So if there's an influencer that you really like or a friend that you really share interests with, Goodreads was something that would help you share books with your friends and family members, and there's other reading apps for that. But this is has a social component where you can say, what's my best friend listening to? Oh, hey, here, best friend, here's a podcast. And then there's Podchaser, which sorts by reviews and creators and guests or categories. And there's Podacy, which offers kind of curated lists, user recommendations, and community reviews where you can dig a little bit deeper into interests that you share with other people. And that might be really helpful if you're just a little bit lost and you don't want to go out on your own and you don't trust stuff. So maybe try a podcast discovery app. And I'm going to have those in the show notes. And then use social media and online communities. I love Reddit. I whenever I'm looking for anything, I'll type in what I'm looking for and then the word Reddit. I just find I love the user communities. And yeah, people complained it's changed a lot, but Reddit has a subgroup called Our Podcasts, and you can ask for curated recommendations. You can set up a podcast, set up a question in that podcast subgroup and say, I'm looking for a podcast for this. I mean, there's so much information inside that particular subreddit. And then TikTok and Instagram, search hashtags like hashtag podcast recommendations or hashtag podcast for you. And then look up who you're following on TikTok or Instagram. Look at what podcasts they may be using, or even post, hey, what podcasts are out there, and see what people recommend. You'll probably get some crazy recommendations, but hey, if you're brave, get out there. There's also Facebook groups dedicated to niche podcast communities. So like true crime lovers, my sister-in-law loves true crime. So does my mother-in-law. And the true crimes, they're just addicted to it. I don't know if it's a sign of something else, but they love these things. What about mental health, spirituality, health, love, dating? There's Facebook groups dedicated to all these different niche podcast communities. So go out and research that. And then ask people you know. Ask your friends and coworkers, hey, do you have any new podcasts you're listening to lately? Or family. Often they have great suggestions that come with personal context. Why do they listen to what they're listening to? And then share your current interests and ask, do you know any good podcasts on this? Post it on Facebook. Say, hey, anybody listening to any good podcasts lately? And then search blogs and articles. Google best podcasts for mental health, but you might want to be more specific than that. Best podcast for depression, best podcast for an overworked mom. Google's going to search for stuff for you. Best podcast for anxiety, best productivity podcast 2025. Get creative with your searches. The World Wide Web and all these search engines are really trying to help you. So help it help you. And then sites like Vulture, The Guardian, Time, New York Times, they publish regular lists of podcasts. So those are always good resources as well. And then look up a person or a topic you like. So search podcast platforms for the names of authors or speakers or experts that you enjoy. And don't get stuck with just the most popular, because they have the best publicists. And I'll say, anytime Oprah is interviewing someone, Oprah, she has a media machine. And I find that a lot of the people that she's interviewing are, she's not necessarily found them, her team found them. She's not giving a stamp of approval on them because they fit her lifestyle choices. They're selling a book. So I love Oprah. I love what she does. I love a lot of what she puts out there, but she's on the Times New York bestseller list thing. So go and look for other personalities, people who are longevity experts if you want to learn how to live longer, and go and type in what is this longevity expert's podcast recommendations, or look up specific topics like neuroscience, emotional healing, or history of jazz if you want to get really nitty gritty about it. And you're going to find podcast episodes and podcasts specifically about that target. I mean, there's more and more niche podcasts all the time. And then use podcast player recommendations. Many apps suggest shows based on what you're listening to, like Spotify and Pocket Casts, which I listen to Pocket Casts a lot. And they do recommend podcast shows to me based on what I listen to. I'll listen to Andrew Huberman, and then it'll recommend this podcast, and some of his guests will go on other podcasts. And then I'll be able to go and search, oh, hey, here was the Joe Rogan podcast I want to listen to because that person's on it. And Diary of a CEO, I love his podcasts. And a lot of people will have a video podcast, but you don't know they also have an audio podcast. And if you're trying to get more steps in, which I highly recommend walking for everybody, listen to a podcast, and it'll really help you just grow so much. So create a playlist inside your favorite player, Pocket Cast or Spotify or whatever it is, and the algorithm will learn your preferences. Just like you create a playlist on Spotify for music and the algorithm sends you suggested music, it'll do the same exact thing for podcasts. And then explore podcast networks. Some high quality shows are grouped by networks such as Wondery, and it's known for its storytelling and its true crime. So Wondery might be someplace where you want to go if you want to shut off your brain and listen to some really good storytelling, which I think is an art that is coming back full force as we have more and more AI and what I want to call inauthentic voices. Authenticity and storytelling that is real is just bursting at the seams now. And so go to Wondery if you want to look for some of that. Then we've got Crooked Media, which is a lot more politics and current events. So if you feel like you're a little out of touch, I've been turning off all of my media, all of my political stuff, because it was just shoving itself at me, and it didn't feel healthy. And Crooked Media is a place where you'll be able to maybe get some politics and current events. And some political podcasts are only 15 minutes long, so they're not these hour-long regurgitations of what's happening today. It's kind of a political opinion and filtering through some stuff. So some of them, I don't agree with them politically, but it's really good to hear their side of stuff. Again, because I want to work on my critical thinking skills, and I want to know diverse perspectives, because I want to have empathy for the people who are in a lot of pain right now. And they're in a lot of pain, and they're really angry about it, and they don't feel heard, and they're scared, and it's causing even more division. So I don't want to go off on that tangent. There's another great podcast network called Gimlet, which deep dives into human stories and ideas. And if you really want to hear diverse perspectives, that's going to be a good one for you to go to. Some other great podcast networks are going to be the TED Audio Collective, which is fantastic. They really root out the people who are on their podcasts. TEDx, TED audio, TED, any of the videos, that you have to really have a new idea to get on those. So they are new, creative, innovative ways to approach current topics, new topics, great stuff. NPR has a great podcast network, BBC, all high quality educational content. And then follow your favorite authors or celebrities. If that's something you love the opinion of someone, then go out and follow them and find public figures that you really appreciate. And they have their own podcast. They have guest appearances. If they have a guest on their podcast that you really like, follow their podcasts and keep going down that interest flow and get new information for yourself. And then search such and such a name. Do they have a podcast? And find interviews, episodes, or entire series hosted by them. There might be some obscure athlete or obscure author or an actor or somebody that you've always liked, and type in their name and podcast. They might have been interviewed on one. They might have been interviewing people for one. They might have their own podcast. You would be surprised at the number of people who have podcasts out there right now. I mean, heck, I have one. And then follow your favorite, look at listener reviews and episode descriptions. So if you really, really resonated with an episode, go down through the reviews and go down through what is being talked about in the comment section. And you might find additional podcast episodes you want to engage with. So scroll through ratings, reviews, show notes to get a sense of the tone and the depth and the vibe of a show before you commit to listening to all of it. You're going to be able to tell a lot when you go on Spotify, say, and here's this podcast, and then read through what it's about, and then read through some reviews and notes, and you'll know whether it's something you want to listen to or not. And then try one episode, see if it resonates with you. Most apps make it easy to sample an episode, and you don't have to commit to it. If you want to get past, because sometimes I know a certain podcast has got 2.5 minutes of commercials and intro, and they're just talking to each other about just junk. I want to get into the topic. I'll go 2.5 minutes in because I know that particular podcast it just has a lot of fluff at the beginning. So sample it, go halfway through it, see what they're talking about, see if it resonates with you. If not, move on to the next. There's so many podcasts out there that if you lined them all up, you'd never be able to hear them all this lifetime. So, life sure is changing fast. It's changing every day, and change scares us. I have a whole podcast episode about change and how to deal with it and process it. But we can't ignore the fact that it's happening. So they're not the same. Things are not staying the same. And as I age, and a lot of my friends are a lot older, I have a lot of intergenerational friendships, which I highly recommend to everybody. Listen to Gen Z podcasts if you're a boomer or X or millennial, and start to hear what other people are thinking, because things are changing fast, but that's a fact. They're not going to go back to the way they were. And deep down, we all know that. All the way back to when we were young, we saw things changing, but we loved it and embraced it, and we changed with it. We rolled with it. We went up the hills and in the valleys. And now as we're getting older and we're becoming complacent, and we are just sitting on our couches and watching our TV programs and being spoon-fed, you know what? Embrace this change. Get out there, listen to podcasts, get some current thinking, and stop saying, I remember when. And stop saying, I hate how things are changing. Start saying, isn't it amazing how fascinating we get to see all these things in real time, and they're changing so fast, and we're here for it. I'm so excited for the world we are in, and terrified and invigorated and worried and all of that, but so were we when I was a little girl. We used to do nuclear attack exercises in elementary school. We'd hide under our desks. We were constantly afraid we were going to be assaulted by nuclear bombs, and grew up in that fear. And I got to tell you, we're kind of being given some of that fear now, constantly, day after day after day. So think about it. Adapting can be a beautiful way to get into this life, to engage, to live, to be in awe, to embrace and grow into new thoughts and new worlds and enjoy this life. Become alive again. Don't be worried. Kick off that cloak of isolation. Get into a podcast. Feel like you belong. Feel that companionship. Get it, listen to my mindfulness one. Walk, get outside, plug in, be a part of the world. Don't close off. There's a lot of good out here. That's what this life is all about, the wonderment of our world. So go get yours, go get engaged, and throw off the lines that are holding you back, and find a podcast that resonates with you, and go live your best life. You deserve it. You're worth it. Until next time, live a total life. Thank you for joining me on Throw Off the Lines. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for future episodes and extras, and leave a review, share it with someone who needs a total inspiration. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram and our Throw Off the Lines website. If you want to be a guest or have questions for the host, sign up on the website and we'll get back to you. Until next time, throw off those lines and live your best life.